So why is it important to motivate people to take action? As a leader, I feel like it's my duty and obligation to get people to achieve massive results in their life. And I come across a lot of people who want to be motivated, who want to be inspired because they want to make a significant change in their life, but they never take the actions they need to take in order to achieve it. And what I found is that I started to take this personally, saying, well, maybe I'm just not a good enough leader. And so I decided to go on a quest to actually become better at not only inspiring and motivating people, but getting them to take more action. Now, there's one key difference I want to call out to first, and that is the difference between inspiring action and forcing it. Now, there's some people who think that forcing action is the way to go. But then there's some others who think there's never a time to actually force it. And I find there's a great dichotomy somewhere in the middle. Being a police officer, there were times in my life that I had to force people to take action. But in reality, if there was a way that I can talk them into it, to inspire them, to motivate them to take action, especially in a moment where they didn't want to do that thing, I knew that that's the road that I wanted to go down. Now, being a police officer for 20 years actually taught me a lot about that. But when I got into coaching entrepreneurs, people who are owning businesses, some of them having multi-million-dollar businesses, I found some of those same tactics and strategies that I used as a police officer actually were pretty effective when it comes to coaching entrepreneurs. But I also found a whole bunch of new ones that actually worked even better. And that's the purpose of today's video. I want to start by sharing the fundamentals of motivation to me. What I mean by that is most people think motivation is getting people excited, being their cheerleader, getting them fired up. And early on, I was pretty good at doing this, but nobody would take any of the actions that they actually told me they wanted to take. That's when I decided that motivation wasn't going to be something that I measured based off of how the person felt. It was going to be something that I measured based off of what the other person did. Now, when I think about motivation, I think about intrinsic and extrinsic motivators. Extrinsic motivators are sometimes like a challenge, or maybe even listening to another motivational speaker. It's something that starts outside of us and then makes its way in. Now, these are good from time to time, but I found that it's not really good to depend on those. Instead, it's more important for me to actually offer people intrinsic versions of motivation, meaning it doesn't start with me. It actually starts with me asking powerful questions to help them identify what they truly want and what it's going to take to actually get it. Now, a lot of people ask me, like, what are some of the things that you can do to influence other people's actions? First off, I always start off with modeling the behavior yourself. It's always easier to inspire people when you're willing to get down in the trenches with them as well. But a second part to that is finding out the core values of the person you're leading, finding out what their source of motivation is. Because once you understand it, and everybody's a little bit different, you could really help them unlock some massive potential and some incredible action when you tap into the values that are already there, instead of trying to build them out yourself. Now, when we talk about motivating people, how do we find out what specific actions that are in their best interest to take? Teresa, take it over.
So how do you determine what the most impactful actions are for achieving a goal for your team and for those you lead? First off, begin with the end in mind. What's the bigger goal? And work your way backwards. This way you can actually break down the goal into smaller pieces. But before you start divvying up the actions, make sure you understand what people's strengths are. That way you can get their buy-in, and each action they take is focused on their strengths, which will produce the best results.
So what role does communication play when it comes to not only divvying these tasks, but motivating other people? Communication as a leader is critical. Not only do you want to be authentic, not beat around the bush, but you also want to make sure that the words that you use actually inspire and motivate people, and don't demotivate them or use guilt, shame, or humiliation. I don't know about you, but I never want to guilt someone into taking actions. I want them to feel inspired and want to take those actions because they know it's not only in their best interest, but in the interest of the team. And how we do that is be very careful of our language, and especially when it comes to our tone. I found that difficult conversations probably shouldn't be had over text or over email. It's usually best when you're able to communicate and see things from their perspective. Now, for me personally, what always works best is instead of telling people what to do, I ask them really powerful questions. That's what we do here as modern leaders. We develop the skill of true coaching so we can help people achieve amazing results by finding out what makes them tick internally. Plus, when you ask people questions, it gets them to actually buy in because they've come to that conclusion themselves. They've not been told that that's what they need to do. It gives them like this next level of ownership, like it's their decision, so they have to make sure that they put their action and energy in. Now, generally, I like to have this in more of a group atmosphere when I'm asking them questions, because it's amazing the power of a team, how they come up with all of these different ideas and suggestions. And when it's a team collective effort, everybody's willing to chip in and not just do their work, but also find out how they can benefit the entire team by working on it together. Now, that being said, if it is a tough and difficult conversation, I will have that at an individual level because I never want to demotivate them by calling out to something that could feel a little bit personal. I will take those conversations behind the scenes. Now, this leads to the role that empathy plays when it comes to getting people to take the actions that they want to take. Teresa, you're up.
So why is empathy important in getting others to act? It allows you to actually see things from their perspective. You really have the opportunity to actually put yourself in their shoes, and there's a deeper level of understanding. Now, how do you balance determining someone's perspective with the need to drive specific actions? You can ask them questions about what they can do moving forward. For example, asking, what do you think would be the next best step? What do you think we could do moving forward?
So far, it sounds kind of easy, doesn't it? It's not. We're also going to have to overcome some of the resistances that people are going to give us along the way. The truth is, there's some people who are going to be unwilling to be led by you. Some people aren't going to connect with your message or the way that you communicate. What I've always found to help me out the most is to focus on the things that I can control as the leader. And that is how I show up, how I communicate, and my willingness to grow along the way. I also make sure that I don't make it mean something about me. Leading isn't about me, it's about others. And when I make it about them, it eliminates all of the head voices that I have inside of my brain and gets me to show up as the leader that I truly need to be.
Now, there are environmental factors that contribute to people taking the right actions. The way that we see this is about creating a safe environment so that the team feels comfortable sharing and giving feedback. There's a no judgment zone. We also want to recognize what we want repeated. Leaders can create a culture or environment that actually fosters the desired behavior. So when someone shares something openly or gives feedback, make sure you recognize that, because that way people will see that that's just a normal part of what we do as a team moving forward.
I want to share two different examples of this in action. First, starting out with business. Now, having coached thousands of entrepreneurs, I tend to find that a lot of people struggle with the confidence that they have when it comes to selling their program or product, or even just talking to another human. It's very easy to get trapped in what we coin our head voice, which is like what's broken, wrong, or missing, or all the reasons why you shouldn't invite them to your program. Instead, I asked them a really powerful question. Like, what about this program? What about this product is important or meaningful to them? What has it actually made possible for them that the other person is hoping and wishing and praying would happen for them as well? When you help remind people that it's not actually about them, it's about the people that they serve, especially if they're in an impact-based business, it will totally change the game and get them to show up and take the actions they need to take. Now, I want to share a second example. This one actually is something that happens at home. Now, my daughter, Alyssa, she's 13 years old when this happened. She was struggling with getting up in the morning and getting ready for school. Now, in the beginning, what we try to do is try to convince her and coax her and pay her to get up, but it would never actually work out in the end. Instead, while I was on a walk, I simply just asked her. I said, listen, we're struggling in the morning with getting you up. These are the reasons why we really want you to get up so you can have breakfast and get ready and not feel rushed to go to school. But we know that there's a little bit of pushback because you want to be able to stay in bed longer. We would too. But I have a question for you. What would be something that would get you so excited that when the alarm went off, it compelled you to get up? You were excited to get up. Now, the truth is I would never have thought of this answer, but she said, you know, that Apple Watch that mommy has? If I was able to wear that to school and really be able to track my steps, I think that would get me up in the morning. Now, the truth is I was honestly willing to do pretty much anything at this point, but really an extra Apple Watch letting her wear it was an even more simpler method than I had initially anticipated. And so that's what we did. Anytime she woke up before 7 o'clock and got out of bed, she would be entitled to wear mommy's Apple Watch. And it actually worked for a pretty significant amount of time. Now, as she grows up, things are going to change, which is also why we've got to continue to ask her questions to find out what she really wants. It's pretty crazy, especially with kids, how much genius they have inside of them if you're willing to ask. But that is true for even people that you lead, whether it's in your career or your business. When you can help them identify what they want and get them to see the actions that it'll take to actually help them achieve it and help them along the journey, they're going to be willing to follow you anywhere and take the actions that it takes to produce the results for them and for the team. Now, I talked a little bit earlier about the words that leaders use that help inspire people to take massive action. If you're somebody who wants to dive into learning which words work and which ones don't worry, we got you covered. Tap the screen to watch this next video, How Leaders Speak So Others Will Listen. Thank you for being here. If you found this video valuable, definitely subscribe and keep leading from the front, and we'll see you in the next video.